Normally say there are two certainties in life, death and taxes, and we can add a third, that Israel will always be guilty before the United Nations. You know, the UN, it was created in the wake of the Holocaust, and today it has become the single greatest purveyor of anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, and now even pogrom denial, when we have agencies like UNRWA, which literally employ and pay staff to be members of Hamas, to participate in these vile massacres and abduction of our people, when agencies like UN Women, which are meant to support women's rights, have been silent, unconscionably silent for the last 12 months, as our girls and our women have been raped, tortured, and abducted. When the UN Human Rights Council condemns Israel almost more times than the entire world put together, and when they still to this day, the United Nations has not condemned Hamas or Hezbollah.
Thank you very much for this. Very important takeaways for everyone who's listening. And good luck with fighting the good fight.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now going to meet Michael Levy, whose brother Or Levy is being held captive in Gaza for 1 year. Or Levy and his wife Einav were at the Nova Festival, leaving their 2-year-old son Almog at home with family. They were just about to enter the party when the alarm started. They ran away to a safe shelter where they encountered with Hamas terrorists. And we will now hear from Michael the rest of the story. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
How are you?
Another day.
Another day, but a big one.
A big one. But for us, it's
just
another one in this fight.
Because you're reliving this nightmare again and again.
Yeah, for us, it's just a very long and a very bad day.
First of all, I'm sorry for that, personally. Take me back to 1 year ago on October 7, 2023.
I woke up at my bed at home. I live in the center of Israel. I woke up to the sound of sirens. I turned on the TV and saw all the alerts, the orange alerts of missile attacks all over the place. I immediately called my mother and asked her if they are okay. She said that they are okay, but that Or and Einav went to a music festival next to the border of Gaza. At first I wasn't too worried because I thought, okay, it's just another missile attack. Fortunately, we are too used to it. And then I saw the news and understood that Or and Einav tried to run away, but they had to hide in a bomb shelter not very far from the Nova site. The last call Or had with my mom was at 7:39. He was completely terrified and he just repeated the sentence, "Mom, you don't want to know what's going on here." That was the last thing we heard from him. We know now that 10 minutes after that call, a group of terrorists arrived. They started throwing grenades. They sprayed the bomb shelter with bullets. They even fired an RPG into it. Or had to witness his wife, Einav, being murdered in front of him before he was kidnapped. And since that awful day, this is what I do.
I can't even imagine what you're going through. So there is another very important figure in this picture, Almog.
Right.
Who is right now at home.
At home. He recently turned 3. He's going through all his life milestones without his parents. He started new kindergarten without his parents. He started speaking fluently. He's doing all those things that as parents, this is what you're waiting for. And unfortunately, Or won't see it. Unfortunately, we can't bring her back, but Or is still alive, and we need to bring him back.
Now. What do you tell a 3-year-old that his parents are not here?
I think that's the most difficult part. We ask psychologists what we should say, because obviously you have no words when you look at him. They told us that we have to tell him that his mom won't come back and that we are looking for his father. That we are doing everything we can to bring him back. Other than that, you just try to... You have to remember he's still a 3-year-old who needs to be guarded, and you need to tell him what to do and what not to do. But when you look at him, it's not that easy, because you know what he's going to how he's going to grow up with no mother, and it's difficult.
In the past year, did you get a sign of life from all?
Unfortunately, all we have is that video that we released on June 24th from the day of the kidnap. We can see that he is alive and that he wasn't injured, but other than that and the assumption of the IDF that he is still alive, we don't have anything.
I read somewhere that you got I read that Ol and Einav got your daughter a very loud present. I heard that they got them a drum.
A drum
that makes a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Are you still waiting for the sweet revenge of giving Almog a loud present to make all crazy? That's another thing to wait for. When my oldest daughter was, I think she turned 2, they bought her a drum that, how can I say it? It was too loud, and I swear that I'll return the favor. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance yet, but that's another thing I have to make him feel when he's back. I'll check you up on that. Bezrat Hashem.
Bezrat Hashem.
What do you experience with Almog in the day-to-day life? Do you try very hard to remind him about his dad, about his late mom as well? We talk about them. We show him pictures. We try to keep them in his memory. But it's getting harder and harder, because sometime now when we show him pictures of all, he thinks it's me. He can call my other brother dad all of a sudden, because this is the dad figure he meets on a day-to-day basis. So what do? Do you correct him? Do you let him keep doing it? Those little things are things that I never thought we'll have to deal with, and that's the day-to-day things, the so-called small things. Those are the real challenges on. This is the biggest struggle.
Yeah.
We often, I won't say forget, but we don't talk enough about the people in the background. Let's say about your daughters, for example, that lost their uncle.
Right.
How is that to process for them as well?
That's a great question, because, as mentioned, this is the real struggle. I don't talk enough about the fact that 2 of my daughters go to sleep crying every night because they miss all, or the fact that I sometimes listen to their discussions, and they talk about things that kids shouldn't talk about. Death and funerals and bodies that were kidnapped, and they know all their hostages by name and they know their stories. That's not something that a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old should talk about.
Reality in Israel.
Reality in Israel, exactly.
What is your hope?
Very simple. I want to sit here with my brother and remind him of the present they bought when Emma was 2.
So I think everyone here in Sderot and in Israel and the rest of the world are joining with you to hope for the swift return of all.
Thank
and we're waiting to see this revenge present that you will give Almog.
I will buy it very soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The reality in Israel is something that we sometimes can't even comprehend. The struggles that children are facing and the atrocities that babies have been through, entire families destroyed. No child should live without his mother and not without his father, who is being held captive by terrorists for more than a year now. So we are hoping to get all back as soon as possible. All and the rest of 101 hostages. Now joining us is Adele. How are you, Adele?
Quite tired, thank you. It's been a long day.
I can only imagine and relate.
Yes, and I usually dress more formally for interviews, but since today's a special day, 7th of October, a year since our life turned upside down, so I'm wearing a shirt that says in Hebrew, we're returning to Nirim, the home we always loved. That's my kibbutz. 367 days since our hostages were taken, since our soldiers are dying for us, since we are refugees in our own land.
Thank you for this reminder. It's so important. Take me back to 1 year ago, 6:30 in the morning on October 7. Where were you?
So I was already awake because I had intended to get up at 5:45 and grab my camera and get in my car and drive out to the fields to take a picture of wildflowers in the fields. I live on Kibbutz Nirim. We're a mile away from the border. That's how safe I felt on October 6th. So October 7th, I didn't wake up at 1:45 because if I had, I would not be sitting here in Sderot talking to you today. 6:29, the incoming rocket started. And I ran into my safe room. Every house along the border has a safe room that's to protect us against rockets. It's concrete walls and windows. No. Sorry.
All good.
He wanted to take my water.
A woman needs her water.
Concrete walls and ceiling, and it protects us from rockets. So I ran into the safe room. The barrage was so heavy, we could tell it was something different. It was so heavy that I was scared to stand up and close the heavy iron sleeve that we have on the window that protects us from incoming shrapnel. A little while later, we get no official information. I get messages on my phone saying, Israel has been invaded. Go outside of your safe room, lock your doors and your windows, and then go back in the safe room and lock yourselves in. The only problem with that is the safe room, the door does not lock. Safe room is meant to keep us safe from rockets, not from infiltration. The only way to keep it locked to any extent is by pulling down on that handle and just hoping and praying that whoever's on the other side of that door isn't stronger than you are.
Who was the one holding that handle on
So
that day?
I was lucky. I'm a widow, but my 33-year-old son had come to visit because it's his birthday on October 8th. So he came down for the weekend. It was also our kibbutz anniversary. So he came down for the festivities, and he was sleeping in my house when that happened. So he was with me in the safe room. I wasn't alone.
How serene and happy our lives were before October 7. You're mentioning the celebration of the kibbutz and mentioning and celebrating each other's birthdays on October 8th. I assume you didn't really celebrate this birthday. However,
so we used to call our area 95% heaven, because it really was heaven 95% of the time. Paradise. No crime, no pollution. You could let your kids play out, not like here on the street. They would just go out on the lawn, and it was 95% heaven until October 7th, and it flipped to 100% hell.
what does the conversation between you and your son look like during this time in the shelter while he's holding the handle?
So I'm trying to keep track of what's going on within my kibbutz, within my community. We have an internal messaging system, and I'm seeing messages coming from the western side of the kibbutz saying, we hear gunfire, we hear Arabic outside, they're entering our houses, they're burning our houses. And I didn't talk very much with my son. We were keeping quiet. We turned off the air conditioner so that the motor wouldn't betray the fact that we were in the safe room, and we were just sitting there quietly. I did do a few interviews, whispering into the phone. A few of the radio stations and media called me.
Wow.
But I knew at one point we started hearing shooting outside our house, and we started hearing Arabic outside our house. And my son understands a little bit Arabic, and he heard somebody calling somebody away. And we heard noises. We didn't know what they were, but I looked at him and he looked at me, and we told each other that we loved each other and basically said goodbye. About an hour later, when I opened the door to my safe room, because I had to go to the bathroom, safe rooms don't have bathrooms in them, I saw that the slats on the window opposite the safe room had been broken. In other words, the terrorists were at my door. They couldn't open the door. They started breaking through the window and were called away. Around the same time, unbeknownst to me, the terrorists were entering my son-in-law's house. My son-in-law and daughter are separated. I knew that he was with my 3 young grandchildren, Zivraz and Yuval, aged 2, 6, and 8.
Also in the kibbutz.
Also on my kibbutz, not far from me. And he heard them entering his house and screaming and shouting and laughing and shouting Allah Akbar. And he told the girls, hide yourselves under the blanket. Don't make a sound. Don't come out no matter what. You're going to hear a loud noise, but don't come out from under the blanket. I'm here. He waited until he saw the handle of the safe room starting to move. He kicked open the door and shot the terrorists right in front of the safe room door.
Wow.
He ran out, started to go after another 2 that were in his house, but realized that there were many highly armed terrorists just outside, and that he didn't stand a chance, and who would protect the children? So he cut his losses, went back into the safe room, got down on one knee, raised his weapon, and waited. The next person going through that door was going to get a bullet.
Are they safe?
They are. They're safe. They're traumatized. We're looking into getting an emotional support dog for them. The older one won't go into the house until somebody checks that there's no terrorists around. The middle one hides under the bed when she's unhappy, which she'd never done before. The little one, it seems to have, I mean, she was only 2. It seems to have, she seems pretty much okay, but my daughter has a hard time falling asleep at night.
I can only imagine, and I'm sorry that this is what they're experiencing. But as we said before, right now this is the sad and surreal reality in Israel. One of the known names of this war is Asaf Hamami, who personally was my commander in the army.
No.
Yes, and we all here. First of all, we all know that Asaf Hamami was the first to declare war on October 7 because he was the first to really understand what was going on the ground. And they say that he fell fighting for Nirim.
Totally.
How does it feel for you being a Nirim member who was saved by Asaf Hamami?
So we didn't know anything about that. We didn't know that there were soldiers in the community until weeks later. They tried to keep it a secret, especially his name. But he understood that something was going on. He put his son with a soldier in the safe room in his base, went out with Kirill and Tomer, came by Nirim, saw that there were already terrorists in Nirim, and they were the first ones actually to engage with the terrorists. They killed a few of their leaders, but then they themselves were killed horribly. And the leaders that were left, the Nukhba leaders, wanted to get credit for this horrible death. To get credit for this high-ranking soldier. So they took his body and the other two soldiers and drove back with them to Gaza, which is, from what I understand, the reason why, to a great extent, we had it so much easier, because they didn't have leaders. The Nukhba terrorists that were left on Nirim were without leaders. They were without a plan. So they killed and they kidnapped and they burnt and destroyed. They did horrible things, but far less than if Asaf and Kirill and Tomer had been there.
May their memory be a blessing.
May their memory be a blessing. Has a very, very special place in the hearts of all of the people on Nirim.
I can only imagine. Thank you very much for this. Have
You're
a great
very
evening, and may everyone returns back home.
Am Yisrael Chai,
Am Yisrael
whether
Chai.
they like it or not.
Totally, 100%. What a spirit that really lifted our thoughts. We pray for the safe and health of the Israeli soldiers of the IDF. And we thank all of the fallen that have risked their lives to protect the citizens of Israel since October 7 and until today, in every border towards every front. It is very interesting to always see the connection between the IDF and the citizens, because knowing that their mission is to protect citizens, to protect Israelis, because it's Israel Defense Forces. This is the meaning of the IDF. This is what it's meant for. It has been the elite goal of the IDF since October 7 and until today. And being here with Adele, who was actually saved thanks to these heroes, and especially Asaf Hamami, is truly incredible. We are now joined with David and Mechi. David is the head of the yeshiva in Sderot. And thank you so much for joining us in this very difficult evening. So your story is interesting because your son practically saved the lives of dozens of people.
Hundreds.
Take us back to the morning of October 7.
The truth is, the morning of October 7th, we had no idea what my son was doing. We were very involved in doing here in Sderot. His whole story, I only found out Pesach time, Passover time, about 6 months later, because he didn't talk about it. He was too traumatized. He just worked like a robot. It was only afterwards. Okay. You want to start? 6 o'clock in the morning, the men already went to synagogue. It was a holiday, and the plan had been that about 8 o'clock, my married son, would come back to the house, and we would dress the 4 kids and take them out while his wife would stay with the newborn for a few hours of rest and relaxation. But at 6:30 in the morning, there was a Tseva Adom, a red alert. I had to wake up the kids and send them down to the safe room. I had to carry 2 kids down myself. And then when I was there with my daughter-in-law, she said, just tell your son, my husband, that he shouldn't leave us by ourselves. Please, he should come home. Ran upstairs, got dressed, and on the way to the yeshiva, I hear shooting in Sderot. 30 years I've been living in Sderot. 23 years of Qassam missiles, but never shooting. I didn't understand what was happening, and I ran to the yeshiva. My husband saw me. The place was deserted. There was no one outside. He was outside with one guy talking, talking very quickly with his hands, and he said, quickly, upstairs. Get upstairs fast.
It's important to say that coming back to this spot is very emotional for us, because this is the spot that our guys came down and were able to kill terrorists. People on the way told them, don't go, they're terrorists. They said, that's why we're going. And they sought the combat and to confront, and they were able to kill 2 terrorists, which helped make sure the terrorists would stay in their building.
Just explain, our guys are your students that serve in the army, but also are part of the Torah institution. And they had their guns with them that day, their rifles. Okay.
Simchat Torah is a very special day. And this year, we're going to be doing it even on a higher scale. We go out and we dance with the whole city. So we really had a lot of great plans for that day. But instead of going out to dance, our guys came down to fight. And we're very proud of them because they weren't afraid. The Palestinians took everything into account, that the army, that the police, that the Kitot Koranut, those special units, and the intelligence is not really working. They didn't take into account the heroism of citizens. And that's something very special.
One of the most known footage, of the first footage that we got from on October 7, I remember myself being in the shelter in my house, and then I saw terrorists in Sderot in these white vehicles that we all know and we all can reflect and imagine in our heads. How did you feel hearing about this beloved Sderot of yours taken over by terrorists?
That's what that young man was telling my husband. That young man was a first alert guy who was running after he heard the Qassam to see if there's anyone he had to save, anyone he could help in the first aid station. He's the one that saw those terrorists in the van right here on the street. And he ran to the yeshiva. He ran and he told my husband. And that's where my husband was in the middle of when I came. So we knew about it before it was on the news, before it was in the
At that
cameras.
point, it was really a miracle for the terrorists that they didn't come up. Because had they come up at that point, we were ready with a lot of ammunition and a lot of guns, and the guys had bullets ready, and they would have no chance. But thank God they didn't give us that opportunity, because we were able to stop them here.
So the spirit didn't even stop for a second on October 7.
That's the main point. The dancing continued. Of course, we didn't realize the magnitude. And of course, the songs were really, really prayer.
Yeah. The songs that we sang, it was not a happy dancing. It was hugging the Torah scrolls and just beseeching God that he should save our people and that we should come out of this stronger. And every song that we sang were slow songs of prayer, as opposed to the normal happy songs they would have sang. I actually knew, because there was a guy who had his phone with him. He was going with his pregnant wife, and they wanted to cross the street here. And my other son, the one who was a commander in the army, he said to him, no, get back up, get up into the yeshiva. The yeshiva is it's a protected building. It's built against Qassam, bulletproof doors and windows. So it's considered a fortress. So he said, get up there. And this guy didn't touch his phone, but he just read the messages that were going. And we knew in the women's section, Dov, that there were 25 places being hit at the same time. And we realized that those red alert signals were just a cover-up for the terrorist infiltration. And it made us feel very big, that we're part of something big. It's not just Sderot, that, far-off city that's been getting for 23 years, but it's everyone. There's a lot of places that are getting it. I want to remind you about the speeches. Maybe you remember one of the speeches you made. At that point, the boys in our yeshiva, a lot of them are newcomers. They were just there for maybe a month. They were scared. And one rabbi after another got up and spoke about the Simchat Torah celebrations during the Holocaust, after the Holocaust, the Yom Kippur War, about wars that we Jews have fought and won. And it gave such strength. It was so, it was very strengthening. Do you remember what you said?
Well, we described in 1942, my father described that there was a lot of singing in New York. And someone came in and burst into the room and said, how could you sing when there's a Holocaust going on? And we told the guys maybe he was right. But in Israel today, we have an army, we thought. We have intelligence. We have police. But I think our major message is that there's a whole new generation of young, courageous, spirited leaders that are willing to really put their lives on line and really willing to combat. And I think the terrorists didn't take that into account. They didn't realize that there'd be so much civilian resistance and so effective. And that, in many ways, really saved the town and saved the whole country. And we have to be aware of a whole generation of spirited, courageous heroes.
So speaking of these courageous heroes, I can tell that your son was one of them.
Yes, we're very proud of him.
So he basically built a field hospital on the way to Sderot, and he basically received Nova survivors and the kibbutzim survivors. Tell us about it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. We didn't know what he knew. In other words, until we turned on our phones and internet, and that was only after the Chag went out at like 8 o'clock at night.
Because you don't use your phones
right.
during the Chag.
We did not know about the barbaric hedonism of these inhuman savages that came to torture and to kill and to maim our brothers and sisters. We didn't know about it. And I'm happy because at least we did have a feeling of Chag. But my son was right in the middle of it. He saw it. He saw the people coming out, people that were like dazed. They said, wow, we're seeing someone that's alive, because all they had seen from their house, 14 hours holed up in the shelter, little children held up in a closet watching their parents being murdered. They actually had two kids come to their house. The daughter was covered with her mother's blood. They thought she died, so they didn't try shooting her. Yeah. And what he showed and what his wife showed, he organized that field hospital. He actually saw that the army was organizing a field hospital down the road across the street. He went to them with his car. He said, no, come to us. We have it much better organized. We have much more medical equipment, more doctors and nurses that's joined forces. They came. And then he heard that there was something happening in Saad. And he also went there and he brought them over. So he set up a field hospital, and then he united the field hospital. And there's that amazing story. You want to tell that story?
We have to finish, but we thank him for this courage of him and for making and saving so many lives. And thank you for being here and telling the story. And
I just want to say, he's one of many. There's so many heroes, and we're proud of them all.
We are too. Thank you very much.
And we're here to stay. And the Gaza Strip will be Jewish. It has to be Jewish. We can't have people that want to kill us, terrorists, as our next door neighbors. We're talking about half a mile away, 1 kilometer. Yeah. We cannot have that happen.
Thank you.
So we're here to stay. Sderot is ours, and also the Gaza Strip. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is really frustrating sometimes to think that it happened during a Jewish holiday where many Israelis don't use their phones. So hearing these testimonies and understanding that people weren't aware of the magnitude and the brutality of the massacre on October 7th, not 4 hours later, it is just unimaginable. Joining us now are Hillel and Elisa. How are you today?
As good as we can.
Complicated day.
Exactly.
Take us back to the other October 7 complicated day 1 year ago.
So I will start with my story. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. Because of the alarms. I took my younger siblings to the shelter. This was actually my day off from work, so I wrote in our group, if someone needed me, I'm available. And then in 8 a.m., our supervisor called me. He told me that if I can get outside quickly because he was coming to pick me up to the emergency care unit. And there is rockets falling in our neighborhood. And that's it. I was in 14 hours in my shift.
Which usually lasts for how long?
It was from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
And usually your shift is from...
8 hours.
Okay.
This is not my shift, like this
Yeah.
is the day off. So the situation, you know.
Yes.
And then from there, all the 14 hours, I just treated a lot of injured people, police officers, soldiers, civilians, even kids. We also opened the field hospital, and we treated them then, and then we evacuated them to the hospital. I remember one story about a police officer that got injured near the police station in Sderot. He was brought to me in very critical condition. He had multiple gunshot wounds in his chest and belly. He was unstable. And then while the evacuation, there was a lot of sirens. We didn't stop. I treated him with plasma and medicines for the pain. I also did, while we are driving, the procedure that called chest needle decompression. And after that, it just stabilized and got better. And today we are in good contact.
You saved his life. Well done.
Thank you.
How about you, Ilalo?
So I live in Sderot. That day, I was with an ambulance in my house on call. It's a normal thing that we do in our job. If there is a car crash or a chest pain, a neighbor with chest pain, before the ambulance of the shift arrives, I can give the first care. So I woke up 6:30 with the alarm. It was a normal day for me. I know these alarms since I was a little kid. And I went to my living room, opened the news, I opened the window, and I see a pickup truck just passing by with 4 characters and a machine gun and start shooting. So I called the dispatch and I told them, I'm going outside and I'll give you a bigger picture. Now, it was very surreal because they were smoking and laughing. They were in combat mode. My first thought was, who's filming a movie on Saturday morning? So I called the dispatch and I told them, and they told me to stay inside. And that's not normal, because when everybody goes inside, we go outside. That's the job. Even they told me there are terrorists all over the city, and I said, I know, I saw them, but there's a moral code or work code or something that says that we're out of the danger zone. And they told me that one of our ambulance conductors was targeted and shot in the ambulance. So I stayed about 2 hours in my house and talking with every manager I know until 9 a.m. that I got this pinch in my gut, and I called my personal manager and I told them, you know what, I'm going. If they shoot me, you won't fire me, and if they don't shoot me, you won't fire me. So I'll text you when I get to the station. And I got to the station. There were many wounded that we started treating them. We had one bulletproof ambulance in Sderot.
Were you driving it?
No. It was in another site, so we didn't even have the opportunity to use it. So all the wounded in the station were barricaded in the station. Now it's the MADA station is not a place that we treat people. We rest there, and when we get a call, we get to the crash scene or to the patient's house. And that day we had to treat people in the station, critical patients. The first patient was a 20-year-old with a gunshot wound in the shoulder and in the abdomen. And usually you have 10 minutes in the field to prepare the patient, put a tourniquet or something, and then evacuate to the hospital. And that day, the first patient, we got the green light from the IDF to go and start evacuating with the bulletproof ambulance 2.5 hours later. So it was 2.5 hours stabilizing him in the station.
How is he today?
I really don't know because we couldn't. I don't know. Don't know even his name. We didn't have anything, no ID, nothing. We just went from one patient to another without asking any question. I know when October 7th started. I don't know when it ended. I don't know when October 8th started. I was in the station for 60 days, 2 months, treating and doing everything. And that's my story.
How old are you guys?
I'm 34.
I'm 23.
I assume that usually in your day-to-day work, you encounter and you have to treat older patients that need first aid. How was it like facing a situation where you could be the one that is being shot next, or you treating young guys like you in your age?
So basically, every day we treat every age, from infants and newborns to the elderly. But still, this wasn't a normal treatment. It wasn't a stomach pain or stuff like that. It wasn't a car crash. It was something that was intent to be a massacre. And it was people that we know. Within the station, 17 bodies of civilians and 3 bodies of soldiers. And when later that night, it was like 9. Actually, it was right now, a year ago, when we were treating a body, and I knew the body of a young girl, and she had a phone, and the phone was ringing, and I saw the phone, and I saw that her mother was calling, and I knew that I couldn't answer. I can't answer. I can't tell her what was going on. That's not something that we say over the phone, and not something that we say in a 30 seconds call.
I can only imagine these experiences, but thank you so much for your bravery and for your aid, and thank you.
That's his job.
Yeah, keep doing it. Well done. Seeing all these young people risking their lives for each other, for Israel, for the Israeli society, it's just unimaginable thinking what these guys had to go through on October 7 and the sights they had to witness during that day. Joining us now is Simcha, who is part of Zaka. We all heard about Zaka during October 7. And I am not going to say the worst, but you really had one of the worst jobs to do, treating and covering and taking all the unimaginable amount of bodies in Sderot in particular and around the Gaza Strip. Tell us about it. Tell us about your October 7 perspective.
Well, I'm a volunteer in Zaka International for over 32 years, helping on situations of different tragedies internationally, not only in Israel. It does make difference the culture of the country. It could be Turkey. It could be America after 9/11, or different countries around the world. But by understanding what humanity means and doing it because we believe that we have to respect the dead. October 7th for me started here in Sderot. I was called in around 2:20 in the afternoon, heading down towards Sderot. hitting Highway 34. Until then, I didn't know what I'm facing. I didn't have in my mind a clue what I'm going to be seeing. The highways were full with bodies. Some were burned totally. Situations that we cannot imagine. 32 years I dealt with burned bodies, buses blowing up in Israel, and different terror attacks. But over here it was totally different. The bodies that were burned, what was left was only bones, sometimes skeletons, I would say. But when we came to collect whatever remains that were there, everything disintegrated in a second to ashes. So even if we had a skeleton to deal with, to start to deal with, there was nothing there to collect. You had to bring vacuum cleaners to vacuum every corner of the cars. Going through kibbutzim one by one, 2.5 weeks, dealing with these tragedies from house to house. Unbelievable what they went through. Thinking about what they went through, we still know that we have still 101 hostages. Think about them any second. It's unbelievable.
Thinking that they are being held captive by those people who committed all these atrocities and on October 7 is for me something that I can bear, and I can imagine for you being firsthand assistant and seeing it with your own eyes. What are you thinking about the hostages? What is your hope for them?
Well, we're hoping for sure that whoever is still alive will be able to come back and live a normal life, for sure. But we know what they went through during the time of captivity. As you said, we are their voice, those people that died, because they can't speak for themselves. My particular job today is in Zaka, is going around the world speaking about the atrocities. I stood in front of the UN speaking about women's rights, because I, as a commander, I was on the scenes. I brought the evidence, what happened to them. Not only that, afterwards I spoke in different countries around the world. I am getting attacked from different places, from different reporters or different people all around the world. That what we're saying is lies. Yep. But we're facing that situation by believing that from honesty comes honesty. And we have to stand up, stand strong, shout, and scream for those people, because no one else could do it. After the Holocaust, we had survivors. They had numbers. We are the numbers. And we have to stand strong and not being afraid of anyone and saying what we dealt with, because we are the live testimony.
That is so important. Myself being active on social media, I get comments every day denying everything that happened on October 7, plus celebrities in scales that we can only dream of having, being a minority in the world. What can you say these that are denying daily the atrocities committed on October 7? What is your message to them?
Well, first of all, if a person stands up and starts screaming, you're a Nazi, but there was no Holocaust, so there's nothing to talk about. When we're facing a brick wall, there's no reason to try to walk through it. If someone tries to deny what happened on October 7, he's not worth the time to even to act or even to speak to. We have to understand one thing. We have to be strong, united. Israel, all the Jews around the world, for sure, all our allies, America, and different countries around the world that are giving us the support. We have to be together against terror. And we see what the terror is bringing from different countries. We know that Europe is full of Muslims, but not every Muslim is a bad person. We have to understand. We have to fight the radical Islam. That's what we have to work and stand against, and to be united against that.
I totally agree. Thank you so much for this important information and message, and may we bring them home.
Yes, may we bring them home, and we should have peace and better days.
Amen. Amen for that. Thank you so much, Simcha. We will now watch a video by Hope.
שהקיץ לא ייגמר ונמשיך לשחות בים ובבריכה כל השנה. אני מאחלת לכבוד השנה החדשה שכל החטופים כבר יחזרו למשפחות שלהם, שהמלחמה תפסיק וכל החיילים ישובו לביתם, ושיהיה שלום לעד. אני מאחלת שיהיה יופי בישראל והכל יהיה טוב. שתהיה שנה טובה של ימים טובים ונעשה כל מה שבא לנו. שיהיה כיף. שנה טובה ומתוקה כמו דבש, מלאה צבעים וגוונים ואהבה. אני רוצה לאחל גשם של דברים טובים, צמיחה ושמחה.
אני רוצה לאחל שמחה ואהבה לכולם.
אני רוצה לאחל שיחזירו את החטופים. שבן הדודה שלי טוטו יחזור ונוכל לשחק יחד. שיפגוש חד קרן ושתיגמר המלחמה. אני מקווה שיהיו בעולם הרבה צמחים וחיות. שתהיה שנה של שלום בלי אזעקות, עם הרבה פרחים, לבבות ונצנצים. שנה טובה, בריאה ושמחה. שנחיה זה לצד זה באהבה וסבלנות. שיהיה שלום וביטחון לכל משפחה בישראל. שנצחק ונגשים חלומות, ושיהיה רק טוב. הביתה בשלום. אני מאחלת שכולנו נהיה שמחים. שיהיה לי כיף בכיתה א'. שיהיה לכל ישראל שקט ושלווה, ושתמיד יהיה פה שמח ופורח. אני מקווה שכולם יהיו שמחים. שתהיה כל יום גשת בענן, וכל הילדים יהיו שמחים.